I need you to understand something before I start. I'm not a person who believes in ghosts. I'm not someone who spends time on paranormal forums or watches videos about hauntings or tells stories around campfires about things that go bump in the night. I'm an accountant. I drive a sensible car. I meal prep on Sundays and I floss every single day. I am, by every reasonable measure, the most boring and rational person you will ever encounter. And I have not slept a full night since March 14th. That was 4 months ago. 4 months of waking up at 2 a.m. with my heart slamming against my ribs, my sheets soaked through, my eyes darting to the window because some part of my brain that I cannot silence is absolutely convinced that something is standing just beyond the glass, looking in. 4 months of checking the locks 3, 4, sometimes 7 times before I can make myself lie down. 4 months of refusing to drive after dark, of taking the long way everywhere, of white-knuckling the steering wheel every time a road stretches out in front of me and the trees start to crowd in close on either side. I'm telling this story because someone told me I need to get it out of my body. My therapist said that. She said the act of narrating trauma can help the brain reprocess it, refile it into the past instead of leaving it stuck in this horrible permanent present tense where it keeps ambushing me. I think she expected me to write it in a journal. I'm recording it instead because I can't stand the silence of the house when everyone else is asleep, and because I need you to hear this. I need at least one other person to know what happened on that road. What I saw. What I think I took with me when I left. If I left. Sometimes I'm not entirely sure I did. The night it happened was a Tuesday. March 14th, which is Pi Day, which is something my coworker Brian pointed out at least 4 separate times throughout the day, each time with the exact same enthusiasm as if he hadn't just said it 20 minutes earlier. Brian is the kind of person who thinks he's charming. I tell you this because it's the last totally normal, completely mundane detail I remember with any clarity. Brian and his Pi Day enthusiasm. After that, everything has this slightly warped quality to it, like a photograph that got wet and dried wrong, the colors bleeding just a little outside the lines. I had stayed late. That was the first deviation from routine. I had a client presentation due the next morning, corporate tax filing for a mid-sized manufacturing company, nothing interesting, nothing complicated, just a mountain of numbers that needed to be organized into a format that conveyed competence without revealing how much money these people were hiding offshore, which is a skill they don't teach you in accounting school but absolutely should. I stayed until almost 11, which is unusual for me. I'm normally home by 6:30, dinner by 7, asleep by 10. I'm telling you about the routine because the routine is important. The routine is what makes what happened next feel like such a trap. It's like the night was waiting for me to be tired. Waiting for me to be distracted and irritable and desperate to just get home. Because if I hadn't been all of those things, I would never have listened to the GPS. I should say, our office building is in a part of the city that's been under construction for almost 2 years. There's a highway bypass being put in, and the result is that the roads I normally take home are a patchwork of closures and detours that shift around without warning. On a normal evening I have enough mental bandwidth to navigate this. I know which streets are open, which ones dump you into dead ends, which ones add 20 minutes to your commute. But at 11 at night, after 9 hours of staring at spreadsheets, I didn't trust myself to remember. So I opened the GPS on my phone, plugged in my address and told it to take me home. It rerouted me almost immediately. In 400 feet, turn right. I turned right. In half a mile, turn left. I turned left. I was following it completely on autopilot, the way you do when you're exhausted and you've surrendered the navigation part of your brain to a cheerful digital voice. I wasn't paying attention to street names. I wasn't paying attention to landmarks. I was just driving through the city, watching the cones of my headlights sweep across pavement, thinking about the presentation, thinking about the leftover pasta I had in the fridge, thinking about nothing in particular and everything at once. Then the city stopped. I don't mean there was a gradual transition, the way cities usually thin out into suburbs and suburbs thin out into exurbs and eventually you're in actual rural landscape. I mean one moment I was on a lit street with traffic signals and a CVS and a Popeyes, and the next time I fully engaged with my surroundings, I was on an unlit 2-lane road with trees on both sides and absolutely no evidence that civilization existed anywhere near me. I looked at the GPS. It showed me on a road called Harrow Mill Road, a thin gray line threading through a blank section of the map. No cross streets labeled. No landmarks. Just this line with my little blue arrow moving along it, and the estimated arrival time reading 23 minutes, which was wrong. I lived 23 minutes from the office on a bad day. The detour should have added maybe 5 or 10 minutes, not reconfigured the entire route. I told myself the GPS was accounting for construction delays. I told myself I'd simply zoned out longer than I thought and we'd gotten farther from the office than I realized. I told myself a lot of things very quickly, with the specific energy of someone trying to outrun a thought they don't want to finish having. I kept driving. The road was narrow, and the asphalt had that weathered, forgotten quality of a surface that hadn't been repaved in decades. Not potholed exactly, but with a kind of granular roughness that hummed up through the tires in a frequency that set my teeth just slightly on edge. The trees were close. Not dramatically close, not like they were pressing in, but close enough that my headlights didn't reach past the first row of trunks, and beyond that first row was a darkness that felt, and I know how this sounds, solid. Not just an absence of light but an actual presence, a thing that was thick and deliberate and old. The GPS said, continue on Harrow Mill Road for 11 miles. 11 miles. I'd been on a 2-lane road in the middle of nowhere for what already felt like longer than it should have, and I still had 11 miles to go. I remember the exact, precise dissatisfaction I felt at that moment. Not fear. Irritation. I was too tired to be afraid yet. I just wanted to be home. I turned the radio on because the silence was getting heavy. There was a country station playing something mournful about leaving and not looking back, and normally I find country music mildly aggravating in the way that most things I don't understand aggravate me, but that night it felt like company. A voice in the dark. Something human. It cut out after maybe 2 minutes. Not static. Not a gradual degradation of signal. Just off. Mid-lyric, mid-syllable, as if the sound itself had been swallowed. And the silence that replaced it was not the regular silence of a car with the radio off. It was the silence of something listening. I tried scanning for another station. I got nothing across the entire dial. Not static, not the faint murmur of a distant signal, not even the soft white noise that usually fills the gaps between stations. Pure, absolute nothing. The kind of silence that used to exist before radio towers were built, before the air was thick with signals. Ancient silence. I turned the radio off because having it on and getting nothing was somehow worse than just having it off. The road curved slightly to the left, and as my headlights swept around the bend, I saw the first wrong thing. There was a mile marker on the side of the road. A green reflective post, the kind you see on highways with a white number painted on it. Standard issue. Completely unremarkable. Except the number on it was 0. Not mile marker 1 or 17, or any other number that would indicate a position along a sequence. 0. And I knew, in the way you know things in your gut before your brain catches up, that this marker had not been there the last time I drove this stretch of road. Except I had never driven this stretch of road before. I told myself someone had put it at the beginning of the road. The start of the route. 0 made sense at the beginning. Half a mile later there was another one. Also 0. And another. Also 0. I counted 7 mile markers, all with the number 0, before I stopped counting and started focusing very deliberately on the road ahead of me and not on the things at the periphery of my vision. The GPS said, continue on Harrow Mill Road for 11 miles. Same. Exact. Distance. I had been driving. I had been moving. My odometer was ticking over. And the GPS had not changed its estimate by a single digit. I told myself there was a glitch. GPS glitches happen. Software has bugs. There is always a rational explanation. I am an accountant. I believe in numbers and I believe in rational explanations, and I very firmly told myself one existed. Then my gas gauge dropped. Not gradually, the way a gas gauge drops as you burn through a tank. It dropped the way a rock drops off a ledge. One moment it was reading 3/4 full, I'd filled up 2 days earlier, I was nowhere near empty, and the next time I glanced at it, the needle was sitting at just below a quarter. I had burned half a tank of gas in what my odometer said was less than 9 miles of driving. My hands tightened on the wheel. Okay, I thought. Okay, the gauge is malfunctioning. This is a car problem. Cars have problems. I'll get it checked in the morning. Except the temperature outside, which was displaying on my dashboard, had also changed. When I'd left the office, it was 47 degrees. The forecast had called for a low of 41 overnight. Normal. Unremarkable. Now the dashboard was reading 28 degrees, and when I looked out the window, I noticed for the first time that there was frost on the grass at the edge of the road. A hard, crystalline frost, the kind that takes hours of well below freezing temperatures to develop. And it had not been below freezing when I started driving. I should have turned around. I know that. I know it with absolute certainty from this side of the experience. Just turn the car around, go back the way you came, get back to the lit streets with the CVS and the Popeyes and the mile markers with normal numbers on them. Simple. Obvious. But here's the thing that I've spent 4 months trying to explain to myself. I couldn't figure out where I would turn around to. I had the persistent, disorienting sensation that the road behind me was no longer there. Not that it had disappeared, I hadn't watched it vanish, I had no evidence it was gone, but that if I turned back I would find something different from what I had driven through. That the road was, in some way I couldn't articulate, one-directional. That it only existed in the direction I was already traveling. I know how insane that sounds. I knew how insane it was even then, sitting there in my sensible car with my parking sticker and my phone mount and my little air freshener shaped like a pine tree, entertaining the idea that the road behind me had stopped existing. I recognized the irrationality of it. But recognizing that a thought is irrational and being able to dismiss it are two entirely different things, and my ability to dismiss it had begun, very quietly, to break down. So I kept going forward. The trees were getting taller. I noticed this gradually. First I thought it was just a perspective thing, the way trees look different when you're tired and your depth perception gets squirrely. But no, the trees were genuinely getting taller. The canopy over the road had been open when I first got on Harrow Mill Road. I could see the sky, could see stars, could orient myself by the particular dark blue of a clear March night. Now the branches were arching over the road and interlocking, and the sky was just a narrow seam of darkness between them, and then it wasn't even that. The trees had closed overhead completely, and I was driving through what felt like a tunnel of living wood, and my headlights were doing something strange. They were dimming. Not because they were malfunctioning, or at least not in any way I could explain mechanically. They were dimming the way a light dims when something is standing between it and where you need it to go. The beams were still there, I could see them, but they were reaching maybe 30 feet in front of me instead of the normal 60 or 70, and the darkness beyond them was not just dark. It was wrong dark. The kind of dark your lizard brain interprets as threat before your conscious mind has time to label what the threat might be. I turned my high beams on. They made no difference. I turned them off and on again, and they flickered in a way they had never flickered before, in the 7 years I'd owned this car. And then I saw the house. It was set back from the road maybe 200 feet, at the end of a gravel driveway that was barely visible in the overgrowth. A farmhouse, white once, now the pale gray of old bone, 2 stories with a wraparound porch and a roof that sagged on the left side like a broken jaw. All the windows were dark. All of them. But every single one had a curtain, and every single curtain was slightly parted. Not in the careless, random way that happens when curtains are just hanging there. Parted with intention. With the specific, deliberate gap of someone looking out. I drove past it without slowing down. I told myself it was an abandoned property. There are hundreds of abandoned farmhouses in rural areas. The curtains being parted meant nothing. They could have been parted for decades, could have been positioned that way by the last person to ever live there, whenever that was. The darkness in the windows was just darkness. The sagging roof was just age and entropy. There was nothing remarkable about an old abandoned farmhouse except the story your frightened brain decided to tell about it. I was past it. In my rearview mirror I could see the driveway disappearing into the dark. I was moving away from it. And then I saw it in my headlights again. Same house. Same bone-gray walls. Same broken jaw of a roof. Same curtains, parted the same precise amount at every single window. I was looking at it through my windshield, ahead of me, as if I had somehow looped around or as if the road had curved me back to the same point. But the road had not curved. I had been driving in a straight line, I was certain of it, and the road was straight ahead of me and the farmhouse was there again. I stopped the car. I sat very still for a moment, my foot on the brake, the engine idling, looking at the house at the end of its gravel driveway. All those parted curtains. All that cultivated darkness inside. The GPS said, continue on Harrow Mill Road for 11 miles. I looked at the clock. It was 11:23 p.m. I had been in the car for 47 minutes, which was longer than it should have taken to get home even with the construction detour, and I was still 11 miles from home. I opened my phone to call someone. My wife. That was the thought. Call Mara, tell her something's wrong, tell her to find me on Find My Friends, get a second set of eyes on where I actually am. I pressed her contact. No signal. I checked the top of my screen. No bars, no Wi-Fi, no nothing. I pulled up the GPS app, which had been running on cached data, and I could see Harrow Mill Road displayed on it, but there was no connectivity. I couldn't make a call. I couldn't send a text. I was alone on this road with the house at the end of its driveway and all those watching curtains, and I was completely, thoroughly, unreachably alone. Okay, I thought, and I was aware that my thinking had taken on this very specific, very flat, survival mode quality, where I was not engaging emotionally with any of what was happening, I was just processing it as a sequence of problems that required solutions. No signal. Okay, that happens in rural areas. Drive forward. Get to the other side of the dead zone. Find signal. Call Mara. That's the plan. I pressed the gas. I didn't look at the house. I refused to look at the house. I kept my eyes on the road ahead of me and I accelerated past the driveway and I watched the road in front of me and I did not look in the rearview mirror and I drove. 3 minutes later, I saw the farmhouse in my headlights again. Same position. Same sagging roof. Same curtains. And this time, I need you to really hear this. I need you to understand I am not exaggerating or embellishing for effect. This time, there was a light in one of the upper floor windows. Not a lamp, nothing that warm or that ordinary. A light like the cold, pallid glow of something that was generating its own illumination without any clear source. And the curtain in that window was not just parted. It was held aside, as if someone was gripping it from inside and pulling it back to see better. I could not see who was holding it because the light was behind them, whatever they were, and I got only a shape. An outline. Tall, thin, wrong in its proportions in some way I can't fully describe even now. Wrong the way a reflection is wrong when the mirror has been tilted just slightly off vertical. Standing at the window, holding the curtain aside, looking out at the road. Looking at me. I floored the accelerator. I drove faster than I have ever driven on a strange road in the dark, my headlights barely cutting the black ahead of me, the trees flashing past on both sides in a dark blur, the wheel vibrating under my hands from the rough asphalt, my breath coming in rapid, shallow pulls that I kept trying to deepen and couldn't. And I was thinking with one part of my brain about the practical things, don't crash, watch the road, keep the car between the lines, and with another, larger part of my brain I was engaged in a kind of fierce internal argument about whether what I had just seen was real. My rational mind kept insisting there was an explanation. The road had curved without me noticing. It was a different house that looked the same. The light was a reflection from my own headlights bouncing off something in the window. The shape was a trick of contrast, the human eye's tendency to see faces and figures in random patterns. All of this was the rational, sensible accountant in me, the person who flossed every day and meal prepped on Sundays, working very hard to maintain the worldview that had served him perfectly well for 38 years. But a deeper part of me, some older part that lived below language, had stopped arguing entirely. It had taken one look at the shape in the window and it had simply, quietly started screaming. I drove for what I estimated was about 5 minutes, trying to keep my speed at a pace that was fast but controllable, and then I forced myself to slow down because the alternative was driving at 60 miles per hour on an unknown road in the dark and killing myself, which did not solve any of my current problems. The road ahead was empty. The trees were still there, still close, still arching overhead, but there was no house. No driveway. No watching curtains. I breathed. I watched the road. I thought about Mara. She'd be asleep by now, or if not asleep then worried, glancing at her phone, wondering why I hadn't texted her when I left the office. The routine matters. She knew the routine as well as I did and I had deviated from it and she would know. I needed to get signal. I needed to call her and hear her voice and have her tell me I was being crazy, which I desperately wanted someone to tell me. My odometer said I'd traveled 6 miles since getting on Harrow Mill Road. The GPS still said 11 miles to go. I made myself look at the math. 6 miles traveled. 11 miles remaining. That meant Harrow Mill Road was at least 17 miles long, which was longer than I thought any road of this size should be in this part of the state. I tried to picture the geography to spatially map where I might be relative to where I'd started, and I couldn't do it. The numbers didn't resolve into any picture I recognized. That was when I noticed the smell. I had the windows up and the heat running, and despite all of that, a smell had entered the car that had not been there before. It was, I have tried and tried to find the right description for this and I keep coming back to the same inadequate words, like something turned. Not rotting, not putrid, but gone past its moment of rightness in the way that meat turns, or milk turns, or old water in a vase turns. Like the air inside the car had reached its expiration date. And under that, fainter, almost like an afterthought, something mineral. Something that reminded me of the smell of earth that has never been disturbed. Cold, ancient earth. I checked the car's ventilation. It was set to recirculate. Nothing from outside was getting in. The smell was coming from inside the car itself, from inside the sealed space I was sitting in, and that should not have been possible. I cracked the window. The outside air that rushed in was cold, sharply, absurdly cold for March, well below freezing in a way that matched what the thermometer was telling me, and it smelled of nothing. No pine, no earth, no car exhaust, no anything. The air outside smelled of absolute nothing, and when I closed the window the wrong smell was back. Something in the back seat was different. I don't know how I knew this before I looked. Maybe the quality of the shadows in my peripheral vision had changed, or maybe there was a difference in how the light from the dashboard was bouncing off the interior surfaces, or maybe it was just my body responding to something my conscious mind hadn't parsed yet. But I knew, with a certainty that felt like cold water poured down my spine, that the back seat had something in it that hadn't been there before. I looked in the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. I stared at it in the mirror for a long moment, long enough to be sure, long enough to look at every inch of visible upholstery. Empty. Completely empty. My gym bag, which should have been back there, was also gone. I noticed this absently, a secondary wrongness under the first one. But the seat was empty. I looked back at the road. And then, in the next moment, my foot hit the brake instinctively because something was in the road. Not something I hit. Something I almost hit, that was just suddenly there in the cone of my headlights, directly in front of my car, close enough that I can still feel the jolt of adrenaline that went through me when I saw it. A deer. A white-tailed deer standing in the exact center of the road, motionless, facing me. Deer in the road are not unusual. I knew this. I had encountered deer on roads before. They freeze in headlights, they stand there looking at you with that blank, glassy reflection, and then something trips in their tiny brains and they bolt. This is how deer work. This is the established deer protocol. This deer did not follow the protocol. It stood there, and it looked at me. And the thing about its eyes, I had expected to see the orange-red eye shine of reflected headlights, the way deer eyes always look in the dark, that alien reflective quality. But this deer's eyes did not reflect the light. They absorbed it. They were dark. Not the dark of a normal animal's eye in normal darkness, but a deep, depthless dark, an emptiness that sat in the sockets of this animal's skull and watched me with something that was not the nothing of animal cognition but felt horribly, unmistakably like attention. I honked. The sound of my horn in that silence was obscene. It cut through the dark and bounced off the trees and died. The deer did not move. I honked again longer. The deer turned its head. Not with the jerky, startled, prey animal movement of a deer that has been frightened by a horn. With the slow, deliberate rotation of something choosing to look at a different angle. Its head moved and its body stayed still and it looked to the left of my car and then slowly back at me. And then it opened its mouth. Deer do not make this sound. I know they make sounds. I've heard deer bleat, I've heard the hollow, almost barking sound they make when they're alarmed. This was not that. This was a sound that started in the register of a large animal vocalization and slid down into something else, something that was almost a frequency rather than a sound, something I felt in my chest and in my sinuses more than I heard in my ears. Long sustained. Not distressed. Not pained. Just communicative. As if it were reporting something, delivering information, speaking in a language built for an audience that was not me. And then it stepped off the road and into the trees and was gone. I sat with my foot on the brake for what might have been 30 seconds or might have been 3 minutes, because my sense of time had already started coming apart at the seams, and I breathed and I tried to organize my thoughts into something useful. What I knew, I was on a road called Harrow Mill Road. The GPS said I was 11 miles from home. The GPS had said 11 miles from home for the past however long I'd been driving. My gas gauge had dropped in a way that was impossible. The temperature outside was impossible. My phone had no signal. I had seen a farmhouse 3 times on a road that, as far as I could tell, did not curve back on itself. There had been a shape in the window of the farmhouse holding back a curtain to look at me. And now a deer had stood in the road and made a sound that I was not able to file into any category I possessed. What I felt that the road was not finished with me yet. I started driving again. The trees began to thin about a mile past where the deer had been, and I had a brief, wild surge of hope that I was approaching the other side of whatever this stretch of woods was. That there would be a traffic light, a gas station, a human being, anything. I accelerated slightly. The trees did not thin into a town or a suburb or even an open field. They thinned into a rest stop. It was not like the rest stops on highways, the big lit facilities with vending machines and bathrooms and a map of the state. It was a pull-out, really, a gravel widening of the road with a weathered wooden sign that said rest area in faded paint, and a single picnic table, and an outhouse of the same age and decay as the sign. There was a light on a pole at the edge of the pull-out, one of those sodium vapor lights that casts everything in a color that sits between yellow and orange, and it was working. Which meant electricity. Which meant something. I pulled into the gravel and stopped. The thing about the light was that it wasn't just functioning, it was new. The sodium vapor bulb behind its wire cage was clean and bright, not the dirty amber of an old bulb, and the pole it sat on was painted without any rust. In the middle of this decomposing landscape, this rest area with its weathered sign and its rotting outhouse, the light was new. It had been installed recently. Someone maintained it. That meant there were people who knew this road existed. That was the first genuinely reassuring thing that had happened since I'd turned the GPS off the city streets, and I let myself feel it for a full moment, that small, cautious relief. I checked my phone. Still no signal. I got out of the car. The cold was severe. Far, far colder than it should have been, and I am from New England originally. I know what proper cold feels like, and this had a quality beyond temperature. It was cold the way that the inside of a meat locker is cold, the way that deep caves are cold, a cold that felt geological, that felt like it had been sitting here for a long, long time. My breath misted instantly, heavily, great white plumes that the sodium vapor light turned orange. I stood there for a moment and listened. In any ordinary stretch of woods at night in March, there are sounds. Wind maybe. The creak of branches. The distant call of a great horned owl. The rustle of a small animal in the dead leaves. Sounds of the living world going about its business at whatever hour. There are always sounds if you listen. There was nothing. Not the deliberate, loaded silence I'd felt in the car with the radio off. But the simple, empty silence of a place where living things had decided not to be. Even the wind was absent. The trees at the edge of the rest area were perfectly still, not a branch moving, not a leaf trembling, as if the air itself had given up. The picnic table was directly under the light. I walked to it and sat on the bench and put my hands on the table surface, which was cold enough that even through my gloves I could feel it, and I tried to think calmly. There was something carved into the table. I noticed it because I happened to put my hand right next to it, and the low, angled sodium light caught the carved lines and threw them into relief. I looked at it. It was not a name or initials or a crude drawing, the usual vandalism of a picnic table. It was a phrase, and it had been carved with what must have been a very sharp knife, the letters small and precise, clearly the work of someone patient. It said, "You should not stop." I stood up. I'm going to be honest about what happened in my body in that moment. Every hair on my arms and the back of my neck rose simultaneously, and my stomach turned over in a way I can only describe as animal, a full-body response that bypassed everything rational and went directly to the oldest part of my nervous system. I was afraid. Simply, completely, undeniably afraid. Not the nervous, uneasy afraid of someone who thinks maybe they've gotten themselves into a slightly bad situation. The afraid of a living thing that has recognized a predator. I did not look around me. I was frightened of what looking would reveal. I kept my eyes on the table, on those carved letters, and I made myself breathe, and I thought, whoever carved this was a person. People carve things into picnic tables. This was a person who had been here, maybe recently, maybe years ago, and they had felt something I was currently feeling, and they had left this message, and the message was useful information. Don't stop. I walked back to the car. I walked at a pace that I hope looked, to whatever might have been watching from the tree line, like calm and deliberate movement. I got in. I shut the door. I put it in drive. And I heard from the back seat a sound. Not a loud sound. Not a dramatic sound. Just the small, soft, unmistakable sound of movement. Weight shifting. The specific creak of upholstery bearing a load. I did not look in the rearview mirror. I want to be very clear about this. I did not look. My hands went white on the wheel and I pressed the accelerator and the car moved forward onto Harrow Mill Road, and I kept my eyes absolutely and completely fixed on the road ahead of me, and I drove. Behind me from the back seat there was silence. But it was not the empty silence of an unoccupied space. It had weight. It had the particular pressurized quality of a room with someone in it, the way a space changes when it contains a consciousness, the way you can walk into a room in the dark and know before you switch the light on that you are not alone. The back seat had that quality now, and as I drove I became increasingly, overwhelmingly aware of it, and I could not look. I had decided, on a level below thought, that looking would make it real in a way that it would not be if I didn't look, and I understand that this is not how reality works, but at that particular moment my understanding of how reality worked had been fairly comprehensively undermined. The GPS said, continue on Harrow Mill Road for 11 miles. I want to stop here and describe what that number did to me by this point. 11 miles. I had been on this road for what my clock said was an hour and 8 minutes, and I had traveled, I checked the odometer, 14 miles, and the GPS said I was 11 miles from home. 14 miles traveled plus 11 miles remaining equals 25 miles of road, which was already impossible for a road between my office and my house. But the more important, more destabilizing thing was the consistency of that number. 11 miles. It had said 11 miles when I first got on this road, and it said 11 miles now, and it would, I had begun to believe with a cold, settling certainty, say 11 miles if I drove for another hour. For another day. The distance was not a measurement of space. It was something else entirely. I passed the second mile marker. It said 0. I kept driving. The road changed. The change was gradual enough that I didn't notice it at first, and then all at once it was obvious and I couldn't believe I'd missed it. The asphalt, which had been rough but clearly asphalt, a human-made surface, a surface that implied road crews and budgets and municipal planning, was becoming something else. Not gravel, not dirt, but a surface that was in between, a surface that looked like old asphalt but felt, through the tires, like something more organic. Like pressed earth. Like the road was reverting to something it had been before anyone paved it. The lines were gone. The yellow center line, the white edge lines, both gone, swallowed back into the surface as if they had never been painted. And the road was narrowing. Not dramatically, not in a way I could point to and say here, at this exact point, the road became narrower, but it was narrower than it had been. It was narrower than 2 lanes. It was barely wide enough for my car, and the grass and weeds at the verge were pressing in on both sides, and the branches of the trees were low enough that they scraped once against the roof of my car with a sound that was exactly like fingernails on a chalkboard. In the back seat, a breath. A single, soft exhalation. I did not look. My hands were so tight on the wheel that they ached, and I was breathing in these careful, measured intervals that I was counting out because if I stopped counting them I would forget to breathe, and I was driving between the trees on a surface that was becoming less and less a road and more something that only aspired to be one, and there was something in the back seat. I know you can hear me. My voice in the car was startling. I had not planned to speak. The words just came out, and once they were out, I couldn't take them back, and the silence that followed them was different from the silence before them. It was the silence of something that had heard. I waited. Nothing answered me. Not a word, not a breath, not a movement. But the quality of the waiting changed in a way that confirmed, absolutely and finally, that I was not alone in the car. I'm going to keep driving, I said. I'm going to keep driving and I'm going to get to the end of this road and you're going to... I stopped. I had been about to say you're going to leave me alone, and I suddenly understood with perfect clarity that this was not within anyone's power to promise, and that acknowledging what was in the back seat, framing it as something I could bargain with or address or make agreements with, was perhaps not strategically wise. I stopped talking. I drove. The road ahead of me curved, actually curved this time, a long, slow bend to the right, and as I came around the curve, I saw something that made me press the brake so hard the car lurched. It was another car. Parked at the side of the road, half in the weeds, a sedan, dark blue or black, old, maybe 15 years old. Its hazard lights were on. The orange blink 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 was the first light I'd seen other than my own headlights and that one sodium vapor lamp, and it was so welcome and so human that it almost made me cry, which is something I'm not embarrassed to admit. There was someone in the driver's seat. I pulled up behind it and stopped. Left my own hazards on. I sat there for a moment, watching the figure in the front seat of the other car, and I told myself, this is another person. Another person who got lost on this road. Another person who stopped and is waiting for help. This is an opportunity for mutual aid and for confirmation that I have not completely lost my mind. I got out of the car. The cold hit me again, that geological, ancient cold, and I pulled my jacket closed and walked to the driver's side window of the blue sedan. The figure inside had not turned to look at me, which I noted, which my nervous system made a small, precise notation about. I knocked on the window. The person inside did not move. I knocked again harder. Still nothing. I leaned forward and looked through the glass. The person in the car, a man from the build in a dark coat, his head slightly forward, chin toward his chest, was asleep. Or unconscious. And here my brain did something I've never experienced before or since, it sort of skipped like a record skipping, or not. He was completely still and I could not see his chest moving, and his hands were on the wheel but without tension, without the weight of a living grip. I tried the door handle. Locked. I knocked on the window again, harder than I'd knocked the first time, with the heel of my hand. Hey, wake up. Are you okay in there? Can you hear me? The man did not respond. I stood there in the impossible cold on the road that was becoming less and less a road, and I looked at the man in the car and I made myself look at him calmly and carefully. I think he was in his 50s, I couldn't see his face well, just the set of his shoulders and the gray of his hair visible at the back of his collar. His hands on the wheel, fingers loosely curled. Absolutely motionless. I thought, should I break the window? And then I thought, is this real? Not in the way we casually question things, not am I imagining this in the way you say when you see something surprising. I mean, I stood there and I genuinely, seriously, with full cognitive engagement, asked myself whether I could trust the reality of what I was seeing. Because everything that had happened on this road had demonstrated, comprehensively, that reality on Harrow Mill Road did not operate by the rules I was accustomed to. The farmhouse that kept appearing. The mile markers all reading 0. The GPS distance that would not decrease. The temperature. The gas. The thing in my back seat. This man in this locked car. Was he part of the same system? I decided that whether he was real or not, I could not leave him there. If he was real and he was hurt, leaving him was unconscionable. If he wasn't real, engaging with him would cost me at most some time. I went back to my car, opened the back hatch, and took out the emergency kit I keep there. I have a glass-breaking tool in it, the kind with a pointed tip designed to punch through a car window in an emergency. I went back to the sedan. Before I could use it, the man in the car moved. His head came up slowly and his shoulders moved, and he turned to look at me through the window. He looked at me through the window. I looked at him. He was fine. Wide awake. He looked at me with the specific, mild alarm of a person who has been startled by a stranger appearing at their car window, and he lowered the window with the creaking, unhurried motion of old manual mechanisms. "Can I help you?" he said. His voice was normal. A normal voice, slightly hoarse, the voice of a man who'd maybe been asleep or just tired. "I'm sorry," I said. "I thought, your hazards are on, and I knocked on your window and you weren't responding. I thought something was wrong." He looked at the hazard button on his dash, then back at me. "Oh," he said. "Yeah. Just pulled over to check the map. I'm lost." "You're lost," I repeated. "Took a wrong turn somewhere around the highway construction and now I'm on this road and I can't figure out where it goes." He looked out the windshield at the dark and the trees. "You know where this road comes out?" "No," I said. "I'm lost too." He looked at me with the focused, evaluating look of someone who has just registered that they are not the only person with a problem. "How long have you been on it?" "Over an hour. Maybe more." "You?" He paused. "About 40 minutes, I think." Another pause. "My GPS just keeps saying 11 miles. The air went out of me." "Mine too," I said. We stared at each other. Two strangers on an impossible road, having just confirmed that we shared an impossibility. There was a specific, horrible comfort in it. "Come out of the car," I said. "We'll figure this out together." He got out. His name was Paul. He was 53 years old, a regional sales manager, driving back from a client dinner, taking the same wrong turn I had in the construction zone. He told me this in the flat, precise way of a man trying to anchor himself in facts, which was a response I recognized because I was doing the same thing. He had a sensible car like mine. He meal prepped on Sundays. I didn't ask, I just recognized it in him, in the particular careful organization of his dashboard, the neatness of the interior visible through the window. He was me, or I was him, or we were both the same type of person who had wandered into something neither of us was built for. "I think we should drive," he said. "Both of us. Not stop." I thought of the picnic table. "You should not stop." "Agreed," I said. "I'll follow your taillights." We keep moving. I started to go back to my car. "Hey," Paul said. I turned. His face had changed. Or maybe it hadn't changed and I was imagining it, but there was something different in his expression, something that had shifted while I was looking away for those 3 seconds, and it was not the expression of a tired sales manager who was grateful for company on a strange road. It was something else. Something that was looking at me from behind Paul's eyes, and it was not Paul. "You left your back door open," he said. I looked at my car. The back passenger door was open. I had not opened it. I had gone to the back hatch for the emergency kit, but I had not opened the rear passenger door. It was open now. I didn't. I started. "Someone might get in," Paul said. His voice when he said it was wrong. It had the same quality as the deer's sound, the almost language of something expressing itself in a register it hadn't bothered to calibrate for a human audience. And his face was Paul's face, the same gray at the temples, the same slight sunburn across the cheekbones, but the thing looking out through it was not attending to me as Paul would have attended to me. It was attending to me the way you attend to something you are studying. I did not run. I want to be clear about this, not because I think it makes me brave, I think it was luck and shock, but because I want to convey how deliberate the decision was or felt like. Running required knowing which direction to run in, and I had no idea. So instead of running, I walked. I walked at a pace that I counted in my head, 1, 2, 3, back to my car, and I shut the rear passenger door and I got in the driver's seat and I closed the door and I locked it. In my rearview mirror, Paul was still standing at the door of his car watching me. His hazard lights were still going. Blink, blink, blink. I put the car in drive and pressed the gas. In my rearview, I watched Paul's car get smaller behind me. He didn't get back in. He just stood there watching me go. And as the distance increased between us, his posture changed. The sales manager posture, the upright, professional, slightly tired posture of a man at the end of a long day, relaxed and rearranged into something else. Something that stooped slightly, that let its arms hang at a different angle, that tilted its head in a way a man wouldn't. I looked away from the mirror and drove. The road got worse. This is almost impossible to describe without sounding like I'm reaching for dramatic effect. But the road got worse in a way that was not just physical. The surface deteriorated. The trees got denser and lower. The dark got heavier. All of that is true, and I can describe it in practical terms. But the worse I'm talking about was a quality, an atmosphere, a property of the space itself, like how the air inside an old church feels different from the air outside it, charged with something that has soaked into the stone over centuries. The road had soaked up something over whatever time it had existed, and the further along it I got, the more of that something was pressing in from both sides. My dashboard lights dimmed. Not the headlights this time. The dashboard, the instrument cluster, the radio display, the little screen that showed me my speed and my estimated miles remaining and all the other information I used to understand my situation. Everything dimmed, like the electrical system was having a slow, quiet failure. The speedometer became hard to read. The GPS screen went dark for a moment and then came back, and when it came back the map had changed. Harrow Mill Road was still there, but it was no longer a thin gray line threading through a blank section of the map. Now it was surrounded by other roads, dozens of them, all converging on it from different directions, all feeding into it from places I didn't recognize. None of the intersecting roads had names. They just joined Harrow Mill Road the way tributaries join a river, silently, inevitably, as if the whole landscape was draining toward this one artery. And at the end of Harrow Mill Road, where my destination should have been, where my home address should have been marked, there was nothing. Not an error message. Not a dot. Just a white space at the end of the line, the empty white of an unmapped territory, the cartographic shorthand for beyond here, nothing is known. The estimated arrival time had stopped updating. The last number it had shown was 23 minutes, unchanged from the beginning. It had simply given up. My gas gauge was reading empty. I should have run out of gas. By the math, I had driven 20 miles on a tank that, at a quarter full, should have given me maybe 60 miles. But the gauge had been dropping in that impossible way, and now it was past E, sitting at the absolute bottom of the range, and the low fuel light was blazing orange on my dashboard, and I was still moving. The car was running. Whatever I was burning through on this road, it was not, or was not only, gasoline. I thought I should pray. I'm not a religious person. I grew up in a household where religion was treated as a mildly interesting historical phenomenon, where we celebrated Christmas as a secular tradition and Easter as an excuse to eat candy. I have no framework for prayer, no practiced relationship with anything divine. But the thought arose anyway, organically, the way ancient things arise when everything modern has been stripped away. Some older version of me, some ancestral self that remembered what dark roads felt like before headlights, before GPS, before the comfortable illusion that humans had mapped and named and tamed the full territory of the world, that self wanted to pray. I didn't know how. So instead I talked. I talked to the car. I told it was doing great. I talked to the road. I told it I wasn't going to fight it, I was just going to keep moving. I talked to whatever was in the back seat. I knew now, had known for a while, that there was something there, even though every time I checked the mirror the seat appeared empty. Appearing empty and being empty are not the same thing, and I had learned that distinction tonight. I talked to it. I told it I didn't understand it, that I didn't know what it wanted, that I was just a person trying to get home to his wife and his life and his Sunday meal prep and his flossing routine. I told it I wasn't remarkable enough to be interesting. I told it I was boring and rational and I believed in numbers. The thing in the back seat made a sound. It was the first clear, unambiguous sound it had made, and I flinched so hard my head hit the side window. It was not a breath or a shift of weight this time. It was a sound that was almost a word, structured like one. The vocal shape of something that had an intention to mean. But it was not any word in any language I had ever heard. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds the hair on my body stood up and my vision went briefly gray at the edges and my hands spasmed on the wheel, and then it stopped, and the silence after was the most complete silence I have ever experienced. It erased the word entirely, and I sat there with the afterimage of it inside my skull, a shape pressed into my memory like a thumbprint in wet clay, and I still have it for months later. I still hear it sometimes when I'm almost asleep, that not word from the back seat of my car on Harrow Mill Road. I kept driving. The road had narrowed to the width of a single vehicle, weeds scraping both sides, and then the weeds stopped because the ground on both sides of the road dropped away into nothing. I could not see what was below. No light reached it, but I was on a raised surface, a kind of natural causeway, and on both sides of me was a dark that fell away into more dark, and I drove between them with maybe a foot of clearance on each side. The farmhouse was there again. It was not at the end of a driveway this time. It was directly ahead of me at the end of the causeway road, sitting in the middle of the road's path as if the road had been built to lead here and this was the terminus. The bone-gray walls. The broken jaw of the roofline. Every window curtained. Every curtain parted. And every window lit with that cold, sourceless, pallid light. Not just the one upstairs window. All of them. The whole house was aglow from within, with that lightless light that illuminated without emanating, that made the house visible while making it feel more rather than less dark. A light that suggested not presence but absence. The glow of a space from which something that should have been there had been removed. My car slowed on its own. I was pressing the accelerator and the car was slowing. Not decelerating toward a stop, not stalling, but slowing as if it were moving through something thicker than air, as if the space between me and the house had a resistance that increased as the distance decreased. The front door of the house opened. I want to be very careful here to be as accurate as possible because this is the part of the story that I go over most carefully, that I have reconstructed and re-examined so many times in the past 4 months that I'm no longer entirely sure where my memory ends and my imagination begins. What I believe I saw was this. The front door opened inward and from inside came a figure, and the figure descended the porch steps toward the road. It was tall. Taller than it should have been, in the way that the shape in the upstairs window had been wrong in its proportions. Not a monster, not something with claws or with a distorted face or with any of the features that horror has trained us to look for. Just tall and thin and wrong. Wrong the way certain sounds are wrong, sounds that are almost music but aren't, sounds that carry the structure of melody without its harmony. It had the structure of a person without the harmony of personhood. It walked toward my car, and I looked at it. This is the thing I have thought about the most in 4 months, the thing I cannot get around, cannot process, cannot fully bring myself to examine. I looked at its face. I had a clear view of it in my headlights, close enough to see detail, and I looked directly at it, and then I immediately and comprehensively forgot what it looked like. Not in the way you forget a stranger's face, not the gradual fade of a memory that was never important enough to hold, but instantly. In the moment of seeing, the image fell out of my brain like water through open fingers, and what was left was not a face but the feeling that a face had been there, and that the face had contained something that my mind had decided it was not equipped to retain. It walked to within 30 feet of the front bumper. It stopped. It looked at me. I know it looked at me despite having no memory of what it looked like because I felt it. The same way you feel direct eye contact across a room, the slight, involuntary shift in your awareness when someone's specific attention lands on you. Its attention landed on me like weight. And then something happened in the car that I am going to describe as simply and accurately as I can. The thing in the back seat, the thing that had been there for most of the drive, breathing and shifting and not speaking, moved. I felt the back seat change, felt the pressure of it relocating, and in my rearview mirror I saw, for just a moment, an impression in the upholstery, the slight compression of the material under something that was sitting there, and then the impression lifted and I heard the back door of the car open, locked but opening anyway, and close. And outside the car, between my vehicle and the figure from the house, something changed in the air. I cannot describe it better than that. Something changed. The two things, the thing from the back seat and the thing from the house, were outside between me and the building, and the relationship between them was not one I had a framework to interpret, and after approximately 4 seconds the figure from the house stepped back. It retreated toward the porch. It ascended the steps. The door, which it had not touched, closed. The house lights went out. All of them simultaneously. My car lurched forward. The accelerator, which I had been pressing without effect, suddenly engaged and the car surged ahead, and I steered between the dark bulk of the house on my left and the edge of the causeway on my right, and then the causeway ended and I was on a road again, a road with asphalt and lines and trees at a sensible distance, and ahead of me about a quarter mile away was a traffic light and it was green, and it stayed green as I drove through it, and on the other side of the intersection was a BP gas station with its sign blazing fluorescent above the pumps. I pulled in. I sat in the car for 5 minutes before I got out. The gas gauge, when I finally looked at it, read 3/4 full. Inside the gas station there was a teenager behind the counter watching something on his phone with one earbud in, and when I walked in, he looked up with the incurious half-attention of someone whose job requires minimal engagement, and he said, "Hey," and I said, "Hey," and I went to the cooler and got a bottle of water and I drank half of it standing in the aisle, and the fluorescent lights buzzed above me, and it was the most beautiful place I had ever been in my entire life. I checked my phone. Signal. Full signal, 4 bars. 17 missed calls from Mara, which meant she'd been awake and worried, and they were all from the past 45 minutes, which meant I had been out of reach for the earlier portion of the drive. I called her back. When she answered, her voice was thick with a particular kind of suppressed panic, the panic of a person who has been imagining bad scenarios for a while and hasn't been able to stop. "Where are you? You were supposed to be home 2 hours ago. I called the office and they said you left at 11, and I couldn't reach you. I was about to." "I'm at a gas station," I said. "I'm fine. I'm coming home." "What happened? Are you okay?" "I took a wrong turn," I said. "The GPS took me on a detour." "I'm fine." She was quiet for a moment. "You sound—" "I'm fine," I said again. "I'll be home in 20 minutes. I was home in 22 minutes. The route home from the gas station was clear and direct and entirely unremarkable. Normal roads, normal distances, normal time. The GPS showed me 6 miles to home, and the 6 miles resolved correctly, and I pulled into my driveway at 1:47 a.m. Mara was in the kitchen when I came in. She took one look at me and her expression changed in a way that she tried to suppress and couldn't, and she came around the kitchen island and took my face in her hands and looked at me. "What happened?" she said. Not the phone version, the relieved, slightly exasperated version. This was her looking at me version, her "I know you" version. "I took a wrong turn," I said. She held my face in her hands for another moment, searching it with the particular attention of a person who knows another person's face better than they know their own. "You look," she started and then stopped. "What?" "Like someone else was driving," she said. And then quickly, "Never mind. Come to bed. You're home." I didn't tell her what happened that night. I told her the detour story, the getting lost story, the GPS being unreliable story, and she accepted it the way you accept an explanation when you don't quite believe it but you also don't want to push, when the person you love looks like they're barely keeping something together and you'd rather hold them than interrogate them. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in the dark next to Mara and I stared at the ceiling and I listened to the normal sounds of the house, the furnace cycling on and off, the refrigerator, a car going by outside, and I thought about the road. I thought about the carving on the picnic table. "You should not stop." I thought about Paul and what had looked out through his eyes. I thought about the figure from the house and the thing from my back seat and the 4 seconds in between. I thought about the 11 miles that never got shorter. In the morning, I looked up Harrow Mill Road. It doesn't exist. I searched county maps, state road databases, Google Maps, satellite imagery. I searched every combination of that name in every database I could access. No Harrow Mill Road. Not in this county, not in adjacent counties, not in this state. No record of a road by that name, no record of the rest area, no record of the farmhouse. The GPS route from that night was saved in my phone's history, and it showed a solid blue line from my office to the gas station where I'd stopped. But the line went through blank gray territory for most of its length. Gray, the way Google Maps displays areas it has not mapped. Areas that have not been photographed. Areas that have not been driven, virtually or otherwise. Uncharted. I drove to the gas station the following day and found it with no trouble. It was on a normal road, at a normal intersection, 3 miles from my office. I asked the same teenager who'd been there the night before, he was there again, if he knew about a road called Harrow Mill Road. He shrugged. "Never heard of it." "There's a road that connects to this intersection," I said. "Heading northeast. Goes through some woods. Do you know what it's called?" He looked at me the way teenagers look at people who are asking them questions that are not about their specific job. "I don't think there's a road there," he said. "I think that's the Henderson farm. They've got a fence." I went and looked at the intersection myself. He was right. Northeast of the gas station, where I was absolutely certain the road had deposited me, there was a fence line. A wooden fence, old but solid, with posted signs and a field beyond it that stretched out flat and empty. No road. No trees. No evidence of a causeway or a farmhouse. Just a field in March, winter gray and still. There are things that have changed since that night that I don't know how to explain within the existing framework of my rationality. The first is the small one, and I almost don't want to include it because it sounds trivial. My car's odometer. I got the car inspected 2 weeks after the drive. The mechanic called me in to tell me something confusing had happened. The odometer reading was inconsistent with the service records. Based on my last inspection and the recorded mileage intervals, the car should have been at approximately 67,000 miles. It was reading 67,000 miles. But the mechanic said there was wear on the tires and on the engine components that suggested more distance had been traveled than the odometer reflected. More miles than the odometer showed, physically present in the mechanics of the car, but not counted. Not recorded. The second is harder. About 3 weeks after the drive, Mara said something at breakfast that I haven't been able to shake. She was reading the news on her phone and she said, without looking up, Did you know there used to be a road through the Henderson farm? My grandmother mentioned it once. Some old farm road that they rerouted when the highway came through. I set my coffee cup down very carefully. When was that? I don't know. 50s? 60s? A long time ago. She turned her phone over. She said locals used to avoid it even back then. Said it had a reputation. She looked at me then and maybe something in my expression caught her because she said, "Why?" "I'm just curious," I said. "She called it something," Mara said, frowning slightly, reaching for the memory. "Some old name. Mill something. Arrow Mill maybe? Weird name." I didn't tell her. I've thought a lot about whether I should tell her, and I keep coming back to the same answer, which is that I don't have a version of this story that ends in a way that helps anyone, that I don't know what conclusion to draw or what warning to issue or what comfort to offer. I went down a road that doesn't exist and something was on it and I came home and I'm here. The third thing is this. About a month after the drive, I was going through the back seat of my car, looking for a receipt I'd misplaced, and I found something wedged between the rear cushion and the seat back. Something that had fallen down into the gap. It was a piece of paper. Folded once. A small piece of paper like it had been torn from a notepad. On it, in handwriting that was not mine, was written a single sentence. I have thought about whether to include it. Whether saying it will do something, invite something, make something true that is currently still possible. I've decided to include it because I am an accountant and I believe in full disclosure. The handwriting was small and precise. The same quality as letters carved by a patient knife into a picnic table in a rest area that does not appear on any map. It said, "We let you go this time. I'm going to tell you the last thing." I have told this story in the order it happened, more or less, and I have tried to tell it accurately, but there is one part I've been circling around, one detail that I've been building toward and putting off because it is the part that breaks me when I reach it, the part that makes me doubt not just that night but everything before it and since. After I came home that night and Mara held my face in her hands and looked at me, after she said I looked like someone else had been driving, she went to bed. I stayed up for a while, sitting in the kitchen with the lights on, drinking water, trying to decompress. Eventually I went to the bathroom to wash my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. It was my face. My face exactly. Same eyes, same jaw, same everything. The face I have shaved every morning for 20 years. My face. But my eyes. The irises of my eyes, which are hazel. I know the color of my own eyes. I have worn contact lenses for 15 years and you become extremely acquainted with the color of your own irises when you handle them twice a day. The irises of my eyes were wrong. Not dramatically wrong. Not a horror movie color shift, not black or red or any of the colors that signal possession in films. Just slightly wrong. A shade off from what I knew. A tiny, precise wrongness, the way a reflection is wrong when the mirror is tilted just slightly off vertical. I have looked at my eyes every day since. They are my eyes, my color, my irises. But I look at them and sometimes, not always, not in every light, sometimes I see the slight wrongness again and I think about the figure from the house and I think about the thing in the back seat and I think about the 4 seconds in between when something changed in the air outside my car and I think about Paul and what looked out through his eyes and I wonder about the transaction that occurred on Harrow Mill Road that night, the one I was present for but did not fully witness. I think about what was in the back seat of my car for 20 miles of impossible road. I think about what drove home. I think about what's been sitting at breakfast with Mara every morning for 4 months. I think about what looked at itself in the mirror. I think sometimes in my most frightened and honest moments, in the middle of those 2 a.m. wake-ups with my heart slamming and the sheets soaked through, I think, what if it's still here? What if it didn't let me go? What if what they let go on that road was something else, something older, something that used to live in ancient dark earth and cold places, and what they sent back in a sensible car with a parking sticker and an air freshener shaped like a pine tree was exactly what they meant to send? What if the note wasn't for me? What if it was a receipt? I don't sleep through the night. I check the locks. I take the long way everywhere in daylight, only in daylight, and I haven't driven after dark since March 14th. I floss every day. I meal prep on Sundays. I am, by every reasonable measure, the most boring and rational person you will ever encounter. But sometimes I catch Mara looking at me when she thinks I'm not looking. And sometimes she has the expression of a person who is trying to determine whether something that looks familiar is actually what it appears to be. And she almost asks, I can see her almost asking, and then she doesn't, and she goes back to her phone or her coffee or whatever she was doing, and I watch her make the choice to not know. She's smarter than me. She made that choice 4 months ago. If you're driving late, if you're tired and the construction has detoured you onto a road you don't recognize, if the GPS is taking you somewhere you don't know and the trees start getting closer, and the asphalt starts feeling wrong under your tires, and the mile markers aren't making sense. Don't follow it. Turn around. Go back. Go back to the lit streets and the traffic signals and the CVS and the fast food signs. Go back to where the lights of other people spill into the night and the air smells like exhaust and food and all the ordinary precious mess of the living world. Don't take the shortcut. Don't trust the detour. Don't follow the 11 miles. And if you're already on it, if you're reading this and something in you recognizes the asphalt, the cold, the smell, the silence, then I need you to know one thing. Whatever you do, whatever happens, do not stop. End of recording. Note found attached to the audio file when it was uploaded. This recording was made on July 22nd. The person who made it has not been heard from since July 23rd. His car was found in the parking lot of his office building, engine off, keys in the ignition. No signs of struggle. His wife reported him missing at 9:14 a.m. on July 24th. The case is open. His odometer read 0.